In this video, I'm going to answer your questions about hybrid meetings. These are meetings that combine an in-person component and a virtual component. My name is Markus, and on this channel, I help you engage better with your audience. Let's jump into the live stream about hybrid meeting questions. The questions that we're going to answer today are the most common ones that you have asked in my video comments and in my live chats. And I have prepared 10 of them for you here today. But I would much rather take the live questions from the chat. So thank you for everybody who's joining me live here. Welcome Tom and welcome Leons and everybody else watching. So we're going to cover what is a hybrid meeting, what technology do you need, what methods can you use to actually engage your audience, and go into some more detailed technical questions about hybrid meetings as well. If you're watching this on the replay, you can actually jump between the questions by using the chapter markings right here on the timeline, as you can see on this slide. Okay, so let's jump straight in. What is a hybrid meeting? A hybrid meeting can, for example, look like this. This could be a hybrid meeting, or it could look like this. A hybrid meeting is any meeting that combines the in-person and the virtual component. And typically what you would have is that you have some people in a conference room, for example, or in an office, attending the meeting in person, and they're face-to-face. And then you have other people joining that same meeting via video conferencing as the online component. So that is the basis of it. But it doesn't necessarily have to be one room plus virtual. It could also be two rooms. So another version of a hybrid meeting is if you have two conference rooms and they're speaking to each other via video conferencing. And the reason why this is more complicated than having everybody in one room is that you add all those audio and video challenges, exactly like you would if it was just a conference room plus the online component. So that's one version of a hybrid meeting. Another application of hybrid meetings is hybrid teaching. So in a hybrid teaching environment, you have some pupils, students in a classroom, plus some of them are online, or maybe the in-person component is only the teacher. So these are all different types of hybrid meetings. So let me also talk a little bit about the benefits of doing hybrid meetings, and because this is a question that also comes up. And the answer to this question depends on where you start. So if your starting position is that you have your normal meeting in whatever environment you're working, if your normal meeting is in person and then you add the hybrid component to it, you add virtual component, well, the benefit of that is that you can reach more people. Many of the examples that I'm using are from my Toastmasters Club, which is a public speaking club where I'm a member. So if we add an online component to our already existing physical component, we can actually reach a lot more people, people who are not able to attend that day or people who are completely different somewhere else. But let's look at it. Let's look at the benefits from the other perspective. If your starting position is online only, what do you gain by adding a hybrid component, i.e. the in-person component? Well, some people still prefer to meet face-to-face, and some communication is a lot easier when you're meeting face-to-face. So I think there's a lot of benefits to adding that hybrid component to whatever it is that you're doing. Another answer to that question is hybrid events. So let's say that you want to sell tickets to your events. And if you are able to offer people both an in-person experience and an online experience, maybe at different price points, you are able to increase your revenue and your reach with a multiplied factor. So that's one reason to do a hybrid meeting as well. We're going to cover the technical aspects, some non-technical aspects as here. By the way, welcome to this live stream. Throughout this presentation, I'm going to refer to some things, some links in the description below this video. It's located just below the video. If you are watching this on a computer, those links can be found by clicking Show More just below the video. And if you're watching this on a phone, you access the description by clicking the little down arrow next to the video title. And one of the links that I have in there is to buymeacoffee.com. If you would like to support this kind of free training right here on this platform, then you can buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/MarkusPresents. Even if you're watching this on the replay, that link still works. Okay, let's move over to the next component. We talked a little bit about the benefits of hybrid meetings, and I think there's a lot of potential there. But let me jump into the probably the most frequently asked question, and that is, what equipment do you need to run a hybrid meeting? And I'm going to cycle back to two of the slides that I showed you before. And this is one answer to what equipment do you need. This is a setup with a conference phone, a laptop, a projector, and another phone there. Another version of this has no conference speakerphone, it has no projector. This is another version of it. But I think a better way to answer the question, what equipment do you need for a hybrid meeting, is what do you want the equipment to do? And in my mind, there are 4 answers to the equipment in the room. Just briefly about the online attendees. I lost my train of thought there, sorry about that. So the online participants, for them, the equipment is going to be their normal video conferencing equipment, a laptop or a phone. And if you've seen any of my previous videos, I actually recommend using a phone instead of a laptop because the camera quality is usually higher. Anyway, so for the in-room portion, it needs to do 4 things. You need to be able to make sure that the online participants can hear the in-room participants and the in-room participants can hear the online participants. So that's the audio pair. On a secondary level, you need to make sure that the in-room participants can see the online participants and the online participants can see the in-room participants. So those are the 4 requirements, but audio is really the only real requirement. You don't actually have to have the video component. I have run plenty of meetings in years past where there was only a phone connection. We had some people in a room together, for example, a team that was physically located in one place, and then we had other team members who were remote, and that was only using a phone. So that video component isn't actually necessary. And the reason why I want to phrase it like this is that when you start setting up your hybrid meeting, it can be very complicated, and you can get very easily bogged down with all the equipment. But I think it's more important to think, what do we need it to do? And I'm going to give you a super simple example. You see that dining room table there behind me? I've had a hybrid meeting on that table with just a laptop. Because a laptop has a microphone and a speaker, and it has a camera and a screen. And the meeting we had a committee meeting for our Toastmasters Club. So we had 4 or 5 people here physically in my apartment and 1 or 2 people remote. And we could do it with just a laptop, no fancy equipment required. So I think that's a really important place to start. But let me now walk over to what you can do if you wanna start upgrading your equipment. This was our first ever hybrid meeting setup. There was just there's a microphone on a mic stand picking up the audio, and a Bluetooth speaker which is broadcasting the audio. We used the laptop camera and the phone camera as the only cameras. There's no projector. There is actually a projector, but it's not connected. And the next thing I want to show you real quick is my current hybrid meeting setup. It looks like this. This is the view from the audience. It has a laptop running Zoom. Connected to it is that conference speakerphone that you saw before. There's a camera connected to it as well on that tripod, and a phone as a second camera. And on this view, you can see how it looks from the stage. And this is a pretty decent setup. It has good audio, good video, but it doesn't necessarily need to have all of that. And if I can give you one recommendation as to where to start, is to start with the audio. Just make sure that everybody can hear it. And we're going to come back to the topic of how do you avoid audio echo a little bit later as well. And by the way, if you want to see exactly the equipment that I'm using, I have a link to it in the description below. And I also have it pinned on the top of the chat. That's to my kit at kit.co. And if you don't see the link, it's just markuspresents.com/gear. Okay, so let's move over to the next question here. I'm going to quickly have a look at the chat if there's any questions in the chat. It looks like there are no questions in the chat at the moment, so we're going to continue with the prepared questions, but feel free to put a question in the chat, and we'll definitely pick up the best questions from there. Here is the next question that I'm just going to quickly switch to this one moment. Just give me. Okay. The next question that I have on my screen here, this is a comment from one of my videos. How do you avoid echo in your hybrid meetings? This is maybe the biggest problem that you can have in a hybrid meeting, is that because you have multiple speakers and microphones in the room, you can get this echo. And I'm going to show you really quickly. Actually, I'm gonna show you here. So this is a version of the hybrid meeting setup. You're not seeing the projector, and I'm only using the laptop camera in here as the stage camera, and then that phone is pointed towards the audience. And the only audio connection here is this echo canceling conference speakerphone. There's a link to that in the description as well. And that's the Polycom Calisto 7200. And what this does is that it picks up the audio from everybody in the room, and it also has a speaker, so it broadcasts the audio into the room. Now, this is a pretty good solution, but there are many other solutions we can look at as well. But this is a good solution because it fulfills the most important requirement in avoiding echo, and that is to make sure that there is only one active microphone and only one active speaker, and they are both connected to the same device. And in fact, in this case, it's all connected to the laptop. The problem arises with echo is that on that phone there, for example, there's obviously a speaker and a microphone in the phone as well, but it's absolutely critical to disconnect the audio from that phone. Muting it is not enough because you're still going to have some bleed through from the phone speaker into the room. So you need to disconnect the audio. I actually have a video coming up in about 10 days' time completely dealing with this topic of audio echo with sound samples as well. And when that video is out, I'm going to put a link to it here above me. Okay, but the answer is disconnect all your audio to avoid echo. That is the most essential thing that you can do with this. But so what you saw there was my fancy conference setup. Sorry, my fancy conference speakerphone setup. But you can actually avoid echo with other setups as well. And the next slide I'm going to show you here. This is one of our previous hybrid meeting setups from our Toastmasters Club, and this is being modeled by our club president Nina here. In this setup, there is a microphone on that mic stand. It is connected via a cable to the laptop. And then there is that Bluetooth speakerphone is just next to the phone there, that greenish, yellowish thing. That's handling the audio out. So in this case, we do have two different devices handling audio, but critically, they're both connected to the laptop. So the Bluetooth connection is to the laptop, and the wired connection is to the laptop as well. And there's no echo, so long as all the other devices are completely disconnected in terms of audio. And one of those other devices could be that projector, for example. It does have a speaker, but I made sure that there's no audio being transmitted there. Smash the like button if you're getting value from these tips so far. We're going to keep covering these questions. And that one, let's see, I'm going to quickly have a look if we have anything coming through from the chat. Not at the moment. Well, let's do a different question that I received, and I'm going to abbreviate this a little bit. One of the questions that I got in my video is that, I'm just going to quickly pull it up here. There we go. I'm not going to put it on the screen because it's a sensitive topic. It's a viewer who has a counseling session that she runs, and she says that in her situation, she cannot have this situation, or in her room, she cannot have a stage mic because she doesn't want people walking around, and she also doesn't want to have a microphone that it gets passed around because of the current public health situation. So she was thinking, what if everybody has kind of their own Bluetooth connections at their seats? Would that work? And the answer there is it could potentially, but most likely not. And the reason for that is that if you introduce the opportunity for some more mics in the room, some of them are going to forget to unmute them or to disconnect them. And in any case, it would be a lot of hassle to have to completely connect and disconnect every time you want to speak. So that is not a practical solution. Therefore, actually, that conference speakerphone is a much better solution for her counseling group, because she can actually just have the conference speakerphone in the middle of the room, and then everybody can speak from there. In my experience, this particular Polycom Calisto 7200, it has been designed for 6 people in a room, maybe a little bit smaller than the one that we have. But I have tested mine, and even at 5 meters distance, which is about 15 feet, no, yeah, it is 15 feet, that still works really well. So that's a good solution for if you don't want to have a microphone that gets passed around, or you don't want to have a stage microphone. Something like this is really good. So, of course, link in description. move over to the next question here. And of course, if you're getting value, you can hit the like button completely for free. And of course, if you do want to make a donation, buymeacoffee.com/MarkusPresents. Okay, let's move over to the next question here. And the next question is, I'm going to quickly put it up here. Our next question here is about, it's about the camera. I'm going to put it on the screen right now. So this question is from Peter, and he asked, how do you connect a camcorder to your laptop? If you remember my hybrid meeting setup here, maybe I can quickly go back to the slide to show you the slide. So you can see that I have a real camera on the table on this tripod, and then I have a cable going to the laptop. That's how that works. And Peter is asking, how do you connect a camera like that to a laptop? And there's basically two ways of doing it. My camera is the Canon M50. It is the same camera that I'm using to create this video, to do this live stream. And of course, link to that as well. So one method of connecting such a camera is to use a USB cable. And what this USB cable does is that, and together with the driver, is that it turns it into a webcam. Now, the resolution that I'm getting is not the full resolution. I'm getting about 1024 by 576 pixels, which is less than the 1920 by 1080, which you would usually want to get. But I think you will agree that this still looks pretty good. So using a USB cable and the Canon webcam driver is one of the ways you can do it. If you have a camera from Nikon or from Fujifilm or from Sony, they also have their own drivers so that you can hook up your camera as a webcam. So this is the solution that I use because it's super simple. If you wanted to step up the quality to that full HD resolution, the 1080p resolution that I was talking about, then you need something called a capture card. And a capture card allows you to connect the HDMI cable on the camera to your computer. So it basically goes from the cable goes from the HDMI out into an HDMI in on the little capture card, and then the capture card is a USB device that you plug into your laptop or to your desktop. And the best one for this is from a company called Elgato. They make a product called CamLink. Link to that in the description as well. And what you can do with this is that you can turn any camera that has an HDMI out into a webcam. So that could be a camcorder, it could be a DSLR, it could be a mirrorless camera like the one I'm using, it could be a GoPro. You know, any kind of camera that you have can be turned into a webcam with the use of a capture card. And that Elgato one, the Elgato CamLink 4K that I have linked in the description, that's the leader in this class for sure. So two ways. Either you use a USB cable, then you get a little bit lower quality like I'm doing now, or you get a capture card. So I hope that answers the question about how do you connect a camcorder into your system. Let's move over to the next point here. Oh, and the next point is, of course, that if you're not already subscribed to my channel, you should be subscribed to the channel. I post new videos here every Thursday, and they're all about helping you engage better with your audience. So let's quickly have a look at the next question here, also from one of my video comments. There we go. We have a question from Lynette. And Lynette is asking, will it work to have each person participating sign up into the meeting with their own individual laptop and phone, and then use that as a microphone when speaking? Muted unless speaking, of course. This is somewhat similar to what I was talking about before with the Bluetooth connection. And the problem here is the same there, is that as soon as you introduce one more pair of microphones and speakers, you risk getting this audio feedback. And what Lynette is saying in this comment makes sense, that they should be muted, but it's not enough for them to be muted. They need to be completely disconnected so that there is no audio bleed into the system. But a great question, because you might think that, it is actually a great question, because everybody's used to having their own laptops at home, but because of the risk of audio feedback, you cannot do it in the in-person component. But thanks for that question, Lynette. Appreciate that. Quickly cycle through the next question, because the next question here is from David Florence, and David is asking how. He's asking, can you describe how to screen share media in both aspects of the hybrid meeting? Great question from David, and I'll talk a little bit about that. So let's see if I have an example. I'm just going to go back to the couple of slides here. There we go. I'm going to go back to this slide here. So in this setup, we have the projector and we have the laptop connected. And the question from David was, how do you share media in both instances? And the way I have set it up is that I have simply duplicated the screen that I have in front of me on the projector. And that means that if anybody shares anything on the Zoom meeting that is running on the laptop, it's going to be displayed on the projector, on the little screen, and also on the home screen. And I think this is an important aspect of it, is to use the duplication. I could have set this up differently as well. So I could have said that I want to have the meeting on the laptop, but then on the projector, I want to have something else. Or let's say I want to have my notes on the laptop, but then I want to have the meeting on the projector, for example. But the reason why that doesn't work is that then it's not necessarily, then the media that you want to share is not going to be available everywhere. So the key, in my opinion, is just to duplicate the screen in both places, and then you don't have to worry about, is this slideshow or is this picture going to be shown in all the different places. So just duplicate the screen. That would be my best recommendation. Then the challenge is, of course, if you have audio in your media, like if you want to share a video, and sharing videos with audio on Zoom is a bit tricky. Like you have to be very careful to click the little button that says, share, optimize for video, but I wouldn't recommend using something that has audio as well. Of course, if you make sure that there's no echo between the devices, it's going to work. But that if you want to do that, you have to check it beforehand and see how it works, how it's going to look on the screen, on the projector, and to the home viewers as well. Okay, let's move over to the next question here. And the next question is from Toledo Indie Girl. Let's see if I can put that on the screen. So Toledo Indie Girl is asking, thanks for great info, absolutely. One question, why do you need to start the meeting from the smartphone instead of just starting it from the laptop? And let me give you a little bit of context to this question here. The way I set up my meeting is that, and this was in reference to one of my videos where I talked about the step-by-step guide on really how to get your meeting started. And the process that I recommend is that you start the meeting on the laptop first, and then you make sure that everything is working, you connect all the audio and all of that stuff. And then when you add your phone, remember there's a phone component to it as well. Let's see if we can go back to that. But remember there's this phone component as well. So I strongly recommend start with the laptop, make sure everything is working, and then you add the phone as well. But there's two ways that you can add your phone. One is that you can just join the meeting from your phone, from the Zoom app, just as normal. You enter the meeting ID, you enter the password, and then you're just a participant. But there is a much quicker way to do it, and that is to go into your list of meetings and make sure that you're logged in with the same account on the phone and on the laptop. So you go into your list of meetings, and let's say that your meeting, hybrid meeting, is already running. You just click Start on the phone. Now, what's going to happen when you click Start is that it will join the same meeting. It's not going to create a second meeting because you already have started it from the laptop. It's just going to join. And it is a bit confusing because the button says Start, but it will actually only join the same meeting. And the reason why you should start the meeting, as Toledo Girl was asking there, is just what the button is called, right? If the button was called Join instead, that would work. That would be a little bit less confusing. But if you have several devices in the same meeting, the button is called Start. So I hope that answers the question. But good question. Zoom doesn't really make it particularly easy to join with multiple devices. You just have to trust that it actually works. All right. So I'm going through the chat here real quick. It appears that we don't really have any questions from the chat at the moment, which is okay, and I'm happy to take them later on as well. The idea here was that I would pick one question from the chat and one question from the prepared remarks, and maybe not even go through all my prepared questions. But I've actually come to the end of my 10 questions here. So if you do have any questions, put them in the chat. Otherwise, I hope that you'll be getting value from this training. And if you did, of course, you can buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/MarkusPresents. And I do like this topic of hybrid meetings, because it has it gives us the opportunity to play around with all the technology. No, I forgot one question. It was about exactly how do you engage your audience. That was the most important thing. That's what I promised in the event and the emails. So let's talk about audience engagement, because I like the fact that all these questions are about technology, but I think we should be asking more questions about audience engagement. All of this stuff here, all of this technology is just there to make sure that we can actually communicate and actually have a good meeting. So one aspect that I've thought about is that when I'm standing there in my meeting room on the stage here, put back the stage. When I'm standing here on stage, and we can even put it like that, I often say things like, if I'm going to introduce a speaker, if the next speaker is going to be in the online portion, I would say something like, our next speaker is going to join us from the online portion. Please help me welcome to the stage, Matt. Or I might, if the person is in the room, I might just say, please help me welcome Matt to the stage. And by doing that, I'm making a mistake, because I'm actually differentiating between the online portion and the in-room portion. So I think one key to engaging an audience is to treat it as one audience. Don't make a difference between the online portion and the in-room portion. This is not easy, but I think it's key. So this is something that I'm committing to now, even publicly, to treat everybody more equally, and not say something like, oh, now I'm going to ask some questions to our online participants. Now I'm going to ask some questions to the in-room participants. No, don't do that. Make sure that everybody has the same experience by engaging with everybody the same way, and really make sure to come up with audience engagement techniques that work for both the online component and the in-room participants. For example, if you have ever been to our meeting before, please raise your hand. That's something that works in both cases, and it doesn't require them to use their microphone. They can do it on mute. And I actually did a pair of videos a couple of weeks ago about hybrid meeting mistakes. No, that's the wrong view. Let's go to this view instead. About hybrid meeting mistakes. And in the first video, in one of the videos, I talked about technical mistakes, and the other one I talked about communication mistakes. So if you want to check out that video, click or tap the screen up here to watch the video about hybrid meeting mistakes. And one of the topics that I actually talked about there, I'm messing up my slides. One of the topics was exactly how do you engage your audience even when they are on mute. This is definitely a challenge. Okay. Good. The last thing I want to talk about for our hybrid meetings is, because it seems that there are no questions in the chat at the moment, so I'm just going to leave you with one last tip here. If you haven't started doing hybrid meetings yet, you will notice very quickly that it can be quite challenging technology-wise. But the key really is to just get started. And let's go back to what I was talking about before, to really think about the technology that you need. You can run a whole hybrid meeting with just a laptop. You can even do it with just a phone in a pinch. So think about what is the minimum viable product for your hybrid meeting, and then start improving from there. And also realize that something will go wrong in your first hybrid meeting. And I probably had to do 5 of these until I got it to a decent level. So just start messy, start before you're ready, and enjoy your hybrid meetings. Guys, thank you very much for joining me today. For more hybrid meeting videos, click or tap the screen right here. And for another non-hybrid meeting video from my channel, click or tap the screen right here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.